Hello and welcome to the first episode of CPA's Hands Across the Sea. We're excited to have Asif Ali Beg from India and Patrick Klavins from Australia. Hi guys, thank you so much for doing this. Welcome to CPA's first Hands Across the Sea. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, Asif and Patrick. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
For
guys.
having
So
us on board.
let's begin. Yes, the first question. Can you both tell us your journeys from actor to voice teacher? Asif, how about we go with you first?
Okay. So actually, my journey was not so much from actor to voice teacher as it was from singer to voice teacher.
Ah,
Singer, actor to voice teacher. Um, and actually, this ties up with your next question. I've read but so, I started singing at a time when I had no clue. I was clueless as to vocal technique or breathing technique. Clueless. And I was singing at a time when Michael Jackson was at the peak of his career. And I was singing in a gig band, and I was singing all his songs or desperately struggling to sing his songs with no breathing technique and no. So I used to strain to hit all those top notes.
Yeah.
And I ended up damaging my voice quite badly. I had to quit the band and not sing for a whole year and all of that. And when I went to drama school, I discovered breathing technique, and I discovered this wonderful world of voice and the limitless potential of voice when you know how it works and how you can make it work for you. So for me, yeah, it was that. And of course, I was called in to sing for Winnie the Pooh.
lovely.
And because they said, oh, the texture of your voice is very close, would you like to try dubbing for the character? Of course, I was dubbing in Hindi. So I said, yeah, and I tried and I got the part. And Winnie the Pooh was part of my life for 10 years.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was through music I discovered a whole new world of voice to my singing. And of course, I was born with a respiratory disorder, which didn't really, which made my life quite difficult. I still have a shortness of breath, but having discovered breathing technique in drama school, I said, whoa, this is something that I have to share. I have to share.
Yeah. It's quite mechanical, isn't it? I mean, and that's the joy about voice. It's not just oh my goodness, they've got a beautiful voice. It's natural. And yes, of course, people are born with a beautiful voice, but it's mechanical as well. And it's something that can be trained and developed, and even things like dealing with a respiratory issue.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important for actors.
It's such a powerful thing to know that drama, theater training or voice training could actually help you overcome a biological issue, which is it's very powerful.
And not just a biological issue, but psychological issues.
Psychological issue.
course.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I'll
brilliant.
actually let Patrick speak because I'll share a story a little later.
Sure, lovely. Patrick, over to you. Tell us about your journey.
Sure. So yeah, I trained at a drama school in South Australia, and that was a 3-year full-time program. And
Didn't you have an amazing drama teacher before you went
did.
to drama school? I'm sure you had an incredible teacher,
Yeah, I forget his
What
name.
was his name? What was his name?
Gary or
Gary, George, something.
Well,
with
I may know his name, even though I wasn't there.
Well, yeah, I did start. Well, yeah, in all fairness, yes, Glenn was my mentor. No, but sincerely, Glenn was my mentor before going to drama school, and encouraged me to go to drama school, so I did. And when I was at school, I always thought of myself as I sort of tied my identity down to being one thing, the noun of being an actor. It was, I only wanted to be an actor. But then I worked a little bit after drama school, and my voice teacher encouraged me to take his classes for a few months. He was working on a show, The Matilda, for the RSC, touring around Australia.
Cool.
And so I was the sort of interim voice person at this my old drama school. And I discovered, I had like an awakening that I got the same or probably more enjoyment out of teaching than I did performing.
Yeah.
And it was a lovely realization that I felt like that's what I was meant to do. to be teaching, to be working with actors. And I felt really fortunate that I didn't intend to be a voice teacher at all. It was sort of just happenstance. Yeah.
It's an amazing
And
thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and sort of the rest is history, really. I fell into it and then, pursued formal study in it, and here I am. But I don't. 5-6 years ago, if you'd asked me, I wouldn't have said yes, I'm going to be a voice teacher. It wasn't like that at all.
And what was the course that you did at Tasmanian University? Was that a theatre course or a more generalised arts course?
Yeah, that's a Bachelor of Contemporary Arts, majoring in theatre, and I had it was Tasmanian College of the Arts. That was a bridge to get me to go to NIDA to do my MFA in voice. Yeah, because I only had an advanced diploma in acting, so I needed that to do that. But that was actually a really good school at the time, and we had sort of free reign of this college, and we were trained in many disciplines.
Yeah. And Helen Tranos was running that course then, wasn't she?
Yeah,
and that's where the circle is lovely, because I trained with Helen at WAPA. So there's really nice circles that happen. I love that about our industry, that we go from student to peer to boss sometimes, and it's just such a wonderful, flexible environment, our industry, where we interchange roles all the time. It's great. That's very exciting.
Wonderful.
Cool.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And then London came after NIDA, correct?
Yeah, I got to do my international placement in London at Rose Bruford College, which is in in Sidcup, and I got to teach there for 4 weeks, and then I got to do some observations at Guildhall and Central School of Speech and Drama.
Oh, wow.
And it was really that's the real sort of jewel of that course, is the international placement, because you get to go across the pond and have this collaboration with these amazing voice teachers.
Yeah. Asif, did you stay in England after East 15?
No, I tried. I tried, but I couldn't. It was the year of 9/11, and with a name like Asif Ali Beg, dance in hell.
Oh God.
Talk about the world.
Because Glenn, I got the school organizes a showcase.
Yep.
I'm sure all drama schools, even Australia, do the showcase. And at the showcase, I got an agent who sent me to auditions, and I was cast in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Bombay Dreams.
Wow.
Bombay Dreams, but I couldn't take the job because I couldn't get a visa to stay back.
Oh God, it's just
even a short-term visa.
Nothing
like that.
It was 9/11. So this paranoia of Muslim is a terrorist.
Absolutely. I mean, the paranoia of the whole world was intense.
The world changed after that. We're not in the same world.
Absolutely. My God. So both really interesting journeys, though. That whole idea of with Asif, from singer through incredibly respected voice teacher, plus voiceover artist, plus actor. And Patrick, that journey as well, going from like you said, the one thing, and then the whole world blows up. I mean, it's another wonderful thing about our industry, I think, where there are so many roles within our industry that make this one product called the play or the film. It's quite wonderful. Oh, that's awesome.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So moving on to related question, the second one, and I'm sure there are a lot of stories that you have to tell, but tell us that one moment when you intrinsically understood how important voice is. Asif?
So for me, it was not just one.
Yeah.
It was many. And of course, one was when I was singing and I lost my voice. And I realized I realized the importance of training the voice and training for breath. But actually, it was in drama school in the voice class. So this might sound blasphemous. I hated Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Before drama, I hated Shakespeare. Wow. Because of the intellectual aura that Shakespearean productions had. And I said, I don't have the time for this.
Yeah.
And in one class in drama school, and my teacher was not even English, she was German.
Fantastic.
She opened up the language to me and this whole thing of rhetoric. And I said, oh my God. So this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And rhetoric as far as writing goes and rhetoric as far as speech goes. And that's when I said, oh my God. And then I I realized that that was the class where I stood out. I did not stand out in the acting class at all, but in the voice class,
Yeah.
I stood out. And just this whole discovery, and I said, this is what I want to help other people also to discover.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm still not the biggest Shakespeare fan. I'll be very honest. I know this is blasphemous.
No, not
However,
at all.
It's not,
how,
absolutely.
however, I have the deepest respect for the man, and just the joy of rhetoric, and
Mm-hmm.
how powerful that is, how powerful it is, from the writing to how you deliver it. You know,
That's that wonderful thing about Shakespeare, isn't it? You know, when you actually do work on it, it's so reliant on this whole body, breath, voice connection
yeah,
to find what he's actually talking about, what the plot is.
yeah.
Even, you know,
For me,
it's so interconnected.
Shakespeare, Shaw, and Wilde.
Yeah, yeah,
That was a
absolutely.
treasury I discovered, and
Yeah, yeah.
I just rhetoric. But so yeah, for me it was in that one class in drama school, the voice
Mm-mm.
class. There's this wonderful teacher called Christina Gutenkunst.
Oh, great name. That's a voice exercise in
Yes,
itself.
yes.
Fantastic.
Speech and voice.
Yeah.
Because Patrick,
Lovely.
you sort of started with Shakespeare almost, didn't you? I mean, your love for Shakespeare was very evident.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I did, because I'm dyslexic, and I remember even starting with you, Glenn, and doing Romeo and Juliet and having to read aloud.
Mm-hmm.
And because I am dyslexic, it just takes you more time, or you need to find strategies to deal with that. But actually,
Yep.
Shakespeare, in a way, is a wonderful, well, for me it was, as someone who was dyslexic, a tool to sort of understand language and understand how it works, because I had to just slow down, take my time, speak it aloud. And then eventually I found rhythm to help me, finding that it has a motor and it's
Yeah.
going to take care of you. So
Yeah.
for me, Shakespeare was kind of my into acting and acting into voice. And it's sort of actually, it underpins basically most things I do, I think, really.
Yeah.
In a way.
So when was the
and
epiphany?
yeah,
Was there a
vivid
moment?
Voice, yeah.
similar to Asif in the sense of losing my voice.
Yeah.
And that was on that show, Glenn, actually the same show, which is
Yeah.
when you lose it, you realize, oh, I've lost something. I think it's so linked to identity, and that you go, oh, I've lost, and I don't want to be too, esoteric about it, but you feel like you lose a part of yourself when you lose your voice.
Well,
You're
it's
not able to
interesting you
communicate,
say
not
that.
able to connect. And I was,
And sorry to interrupt. No. Because one of the things I've often I've often pondered on this when I think of you, where even back then when you were pre-training, I mean, we're all guilty of actually pigeonholing you into the voice. You know, Patrick was this very, very young man, but had this incredibly wonderful, deep, resonant voice. And in actual fact, we were all quite guilty of that pigeonhole, which then sort of translated into an expectation, I suppose, rather than remembering, no, it's a young voice that we must care for and develop and learn how to nurture and maintain and protect, rather than just think, it's a great voice, go do it.
Yeah.
And that was a massive lesson for me in retrospect, when I started teaching more and certainly started gaining more respect for the necessity of voice and voice training, for actors. It's interesting, Asif, I wonder if you agree with this, in India, where there's such a shortage of long runs of plays, that I wonder if that's part of where there's a mythology around the necessity for voice training, because not a lot of actors get to experience that. If you're playing Macbeth 8 shows a week for 5 weeks, you have to have a trained voice. You have every. Do you think that lack of seasons is actually damaging the reputation of the necessity for voice.
Yes, I mean, yes, I've never thought of that, Glenn. I'm glad you said it. Yes, I've never thought of it because I've always wondered why training the voice is last on the list in our country.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
It's last on the list. They train for everything else but voice, and then say,
yeah,
okay, chalo, let's try a little voice work. And voice work is always done with an agenda. I'm speaking in context of my own sessions that I
mm,
teach. If I take your course, will I become a voice artist?
Yeah.
Will I get voice work? So it's
yeah,
always done with that agenda, not
yeah,
just to improve the quality of your speech, your voice
yeah.
and speech. So I find that disappointing. So maybe that is the reason why attention has not been paid to voice.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a
I
very
think.
valid point. I mean, Glenn and I at Mobius and CPA, we keep talking about the importance of seasons
Mm, mm,
for theater and the discipline and that it requires the artists to go through, and voice is a big part of it.
yeah.
Of what we do at CPA. It's
I mean, we did Solitary Choice, Sheila Duncan's Solitary Choice with Remnica Dylan Lobo, and we did a season. And it was a very rare thing in India, Patrick, to actually have a 16-show season of this one. It's a one-woman show. And watching Remnica prepare, I mean, Asif, it was a masterclass in itself. And
Wow.
watching an actor egolessly make demands for the time she needed to prepare to be able to get through this incredible emotional journey of the character, and it was a blessing to observe. And she would lock everybody out of the theater and say, "Look, I just need the theater for half an hour by myself." The only person she allowed in was the stage manager, God bless her, so he could continue his work. But it was such a wonderful and refreshing joy to see somebody taking not just the emotional preparation, but the vocal preparation.
In fact, sometimes I get students, participants for my sessions who have been to drama schools.
Yeah.
And I said, but didn't you learn voice? Yeah, we did, but it was not, I don't know.
but it's not deep work.
Yes,
It's
it's
not
not deep
deep.
work.
As if
It's
Yeah.
what
not deep
happens
work.
mostly in my experience, because I together at CPA with Glenn, we train a lot of youth, and speech and voice gets equal emphasis. But the general perception is good voice is loud voice.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
It's
yeah.
yes,
very
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you kind of talk about the difference between loud and shout, but as long as you've covered loud, you're fine. And
yes,
Yeah.
and
yes.
I find myself telling them often that a poor voice will sound poor even on a mic, and
Yeah.
Yes.
a good voice will sound good even without the mic. But the thing that you're talking, us, and I love to hear from you, that the training around doesn't delve deeper into the
Mm.
breathing techniques, into how to keep your vocal cords moistened and hydrated, and
Yes, yes.
nobody talks about those things.
Mm.
I was going to ask Patrick, because I know, because when I went to WAPA, that was very, very voice heavy. And I know that NIDA as well is very voice heavy, and AC Arts. But you get to that stage after your training where you think, okay, well, I did that for 3 years. I know how to breathe. I know how to speak. And the actor's morning regime starts to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink, where I've actually had conversations with older actors and I've said, do you still warm up? And they say, oh, it depends on the gig. Sometimes I warm up, sometimes I don't. And I kind of get that. I mean, if it's not a vocally heavy piece and you do have a trained voice, your voice and your body kind of clicks into automatic preparation and automatic, maintenance and getting through the gig. But do you think even across the seas, that voice after the training starts to dissipate a little bit amongst the actors?
Yeah, I think so. And like acting in the sense of like class,
Yeah.
I've done it. I've done 3 years. I've done my training. I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's constant. The work never stops. It just keeps going and going and going. And I totally agree that depending on the show, your preparations might be different. But I think the best actors I know still know if they're working in a big space, they're going to have to do the work.
Yeah.
I think it's really dependent on space and style and yeah, the material. Yeah, but if it's or if it's mic too, and as you know, we were just saying about the quality of the sound that coming through the mic. But yeah, I think the work, it continues and it deepens and it changes. And yeah, I
Patrick,
think
I have a question to that. You know, as Glenn said, that both NIDA and WAPA had a huge amount of emphasis on voice, and that training becomes a big part. All all actors around the world, they work. They don't work quite consistently, right? The work comes to us in bits and pieces, and sometimes there tends to be a gap. So tell us a bit about an actor who's getting back to the theater after, say, a break of a slightly longer tenure than duration than usual. You know, how does that impact the voice, and what needs to be done?
yeah, well, this is from my perspective, and in my opinion, that it's it is a muscle and it needs to be worked and it needs to be exercised and it needs to be a process of awakening again. That if you haven't been doing much stage, you've been doing mainly film, habits will start creeping in. Film habits, just general life habits, will start to impede. I think the voice, and that the work. It depends. I know lots of actors who go back and just do private sessional coaching one-on-one with voice teachers, and that's fantastic because I think they know. I think it shows a bit of fear, which is good fear.
Yeah.
That they're going back to the theatre and they need their voice to last 8 shows a week, or even a smaller season, but more intensively. And I think that's a very individual process. I think that the actor needs to lead that charge. Because sometimes you have a producer or a director or a show who will assign a voice coach or give you sessions or whatever. Yeah. But if the actor knows they need to go back into the sort of the gym, so to speak, I think that's it's a deep and individual process.
Sure.
Yeah.
Asif, do you get sorry.
Go for it, Glenn.
The Zoom
same
crossover. Asif, I was going to ask, do you get panic phone calls from actors that get a gig and then all of a sudden they realize, okay, now I need to get my voice back, I'll get Asif and do it in one session.
I do. And I say, okay, I mean, we'll do the session, but it's not going to help you that much.
Yeah.
If you haven't been oiling your instrument, oiling all the rusty joints and keeping them lubricated and in good shape.
Yeah.
There's only that much you can do before a gig.
One of the things I've been attempting to do, I suppose for the last year and a half really, is especially when looking at text analysis and character development as well, is making sure that that whole idea of breath and sound is part of the text analysis and the character development. I don't think I've coined this phrase at all, but I use it a lot, where I say, look, words are basically sounds that we have collectively agreed mean something. So you must break the sound down to actually find the text analysis and the character development, and even the objective at times. I mean, if you're looking at a Shakespeare, I mean, the sounds he uses sometimes, feeds the objective. So it's something I've really been putting into my own practice when teaching, is that trying to marry the two, I suppose, where voice isn't this separate thing that, you go to every now and then, but it's actually an intrinsic part of the analysis process and the rehearsal process. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. And do you think I'm on the right track?
Patrick?
Yeah, well, I'm Glenn, I'm reminded of the Peter Schaffer quote from Amadeus, what is the need in the sound?
Yes, yeah.
And I love using that quote because I think of a text as a score, and that score includes vowels and consonants, and then you're getting the topography of the sounds, or the sort of the map of the sounds, and intrinsic in that is the need and the intention, and the playwright's given you these beautiful clusters of vowels and consonants, and you're sort of having to do all that detective work to go, why is it shaped like this? What's the need in this, and why have they given me this? And I think that's a wonderful way to look at it. I love that.
Yeah, great.
A collective agreement of these sounds mean this, as you were saying. But
Yeah.
For me, it's
Asif?
very interesting. It's very interesting when you give one piece of text to let's say 5 actors, and to see how 5 actors voice it differently. So then, wow, so that I find that really very, very interesting, as opposed to when you just read it. I mean, when it's just on the page, but when it comes to life, when the words come to life, is when the words are brought to life by 5 different people in 5 different shades, let's say. That I find that really, really very interesting.
And that's where, as a director, I actually, part of my audition process is I have to actually close my eyes and listen to the voice as well, because that's so, I mean, the sound that's being produced by an actor is so much part of what the final production comes. And they could have an amazing voice, but it's not the sound that I'm looking for, in the character. And that's part of the process for me as a director. And I love that. And it just punches home for me that it's holistic. It's not voices over there and movement is over there and text analysis here. It's the whole witch's cauldron, which has to be part of it. What are your guys' thoughts on if we're looking more at not so much film, but like TV and web series dialogues and texts, where the writer is actually writing quite naturalistically, I suppose, and it's just street talk. And that idea, I mean, because we keep referring to Shakespeare text, which is that heightened text, but when you're looking at the more naturalistic and the hyper naturalistic of television, and web series, what are your thoughts on that similar connection between like tackling a Shakespeare text with vocal quality, taking it into more of that TV land?
For me, Glenn, if at whatever medium you're speaking in, you're telling a story. You're telling a story, And if for me, maybe I'm old-fashioned or maybe I'm rigid, but if I can't understand the words, it's pointless. And there are a lot of actors who think natural acting means mumbling.
Yes.
I'm
Matthew
sorry, but I
McConaughey
don't.
for that.
Absolutely.
I don't have the patience for that. I don't have the patience for that. And with the result that now there's a whole generation of viewers who are so reliant on subtitles. So then the actor doesn't have to bother. So he's mumbling because he knows there's going to be subtitles. And there is this confusion between being realistic and naturalistic and mumbling. Incoherent speech. I said, what's the point? I'm struggling. I've missed keywords. I've missed keywords. So for me, I remember once I never walk out of plays. Never. I did it once though. I went to watch a production of Noises Off by a very established theatre group with some of Bombay's finest actors on stage. I know the play because I'd read it. I had seen a film version of it, and I'd seen an earlier production of it. So I knew the play before going in. And as you know, it's a very high energy, doors closing, shutting, it's very physical. That I couldn't understand a word of what they were saying. It was just noise. It was just people. It was just noise and rushing around. So I don't know. Maybe I had to leave. I couldn't sit through it. For me, if I can't understand the words, there's no point. You are telling a story.
And I think it's that thing of a blind person should be able to come and see the production. There you go. Through their ears.
There you go.
And the feeling that they're gathering. Patrick, what about the Australian landscape as far as TV? And I mean, I think it's a little bit different in Australia. I think I'm correct where most actors, because it's a much more regulated business, most actors have gone through a training. But I suppose in the world of the soap operas where they're grabbing these really young, inexperienced actors pre-training, do you think there is a disconnect between the importance of voice and text in the naturalistic world?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a tendency to play mood And as everyone says, move backwards is doomed.
Yeah.
And it really is. And it kind of is, I think. And also think a thing of not connecting to the text so the audience can't connect to them.
Yeah.
And I've just paraphrased the Patsy Rodenberg quote, but it's saying things and not really knowing what you're saying and allowing mood and coolness to sort of take over. And that's just becomes sound, and it's not intelligible. So you don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they're saying. And they're kind of played at the idea of what that line should be.
Yeah.
And subsequently, I feel like we, the audience, don't get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing about, becoming lazy as you get more and more experienced, isn't it? Like Asif said that, you some of the top, performers or, artists were there, but the mumbling happened. And it's kind of these things that you take for granted. And as you said, Patrick, hide behind the coolness and the casualness of it.
Well, and even hiding behind success. I had an occasion where I was auditioning a very, very high-profile actor to do a production and it was, unfortunately, I was in Australia, so it was a Zoom sort of reading of this play, and I kept asking this actor, "Oh, could you come closer to the computer and can you speak up?" And he got closer, and he was supposedly speaking up, and I still couldn't hear him or understand him, and I could hear everybody else. And so I dropped him an email and said, "Oh, look, I'm really excited about working with you. Because we're going to be playing a big theatre, it was going to be for NCPA. I said, I would love to get you into a studio for a couple of weeks, just looking at the text with vocal, because I just want to make sure that, because I don't want to mic it, basically. I don't want to use mics." And this actor was incredibly offended and wouldn't do the job. And I thought, my God, I'm offering a gift. And it was ego getting in the way of the job, of doing the work. It was very interesting.
Over here, I find a lot of actors who are gearing up into getting into Bollywood. When it comes to voice, they develop affectation. And most of the time, it's Amitabh Bachchan is their benchmark. And it's most of the time, it's just dialogue bazi. Dialogue bazi. It's like not really connecting to, first of all, finding your own voice. And then understanding the text and bringing that to life rather than mood, like Patrick mentioned, I think it will sound nice if I do it like this. I think it'll sound nice if I sing it speak it in a lower voice, deeper voice, high pitch. It's not about pitch and volume. It's about what is the playwright, what is the writer trying to say, and how are you going to express that from the inside of you, rather than picking something from there and picking something from there. Earlier, Rayana, you said something about we have this notion that big voices are good voices. I have developed a motto in my speakology sessions. One of them is, size doesn't matter.
Lovely. Absolutely. I mean, that is something.
Do with what you've been blessed with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a director's perspective, sometimes I get, especially younger actors, saying, "What should I do with my hands?" And I say, "I don't give a fuck. I don't care what you do with your hands. Play the role, play the moment, play the objective. I just don't care. I'm sorry." Wrong question.
There's and it kind of nicely ties into what I was about to ask next, and in bits and pieces both of you have answered it. What are the telltale signs of an underprepared or an undertrained voice? And mumbling, both of you said. Being cool is the other one. What else do you think, Patrick? What are the signs of an underprepared voice?
I think a de-energized voice falling back into a creak or a sort of fry. That fry creaky quality, which is very California, and it's not about geography. It's about pop culture, isn't it? It's really about
fashion,
an affectation.
It is.
Yes. I think this affectation is also a sign of an underdeveloped voice, because perhaps they're they don't have the tools or the embodied experience to be able to use the text, use their voice. So you get these this fry, the creak. Maybe if it's very, very breathy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sort of telltale signs. It depends person to person. But lately, fry and creak have been a sort of big sign.
Great. Yeah. Asif?
For me, again, it's just affectation only, and I can hear there is a certain dishonesty in the way you're telling it. You're telling the story because it's not coming from you. It's coming from, I think this kind of sound is what is going to work, and so for me, it's that, and you can smell it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I like that you said, it sounds like it's coming from the outside, and Patrick, you were basically saying the same thing. And it's that wonderful thing when you're watching a great actor working, and you each day in rehearsal, you hear the voice altering as they find character.
Yes.
It's about the homework of the character and the text, which starts affecting body, voice, what I do with my hands, all that kind of stuff. And I love watching actors going through that process. And by the end of, you've got the voice that started down here, and they've discovered this incredibly new and unique voice, and it becomes their interpretation of the character.
Yes.
Rather than an affected interpretation or a copycat. I love that process. I love watching actors work in the rehearsal room. I don't like to see it on stage, but in the rehearsal room, I love watching actors work. It's so fascinating. It's one of the...
Asif, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to
waffle. As Asif said that, he can smell it when someone's not authentic or the voice is not coming from within. Even as lay people, when we talk to someone and a slight shift in the voice does not go unnoticed. So much more would it be the case when you're on set or on stage. And I think, coming back to the training part of it, Asif and Patrick, I'd love to know who should drive the importance of voice training in a production. Is it the director's prerogative? Is it the actors who should be taking initiative? What is it, Patrick?
I want to say the director. I'd love to say the director, because I've worked with and not worked with directors because they've not wanted voice people in the room. And there's some and during my training, I got to meet some really wonderful directors who love voice people, and then some really big directors who just didn't close room, no voice people, because they had bad experiences with voice people. And that's a real shame, because I think the voice person really is a really interesting role between almost dramaturg and sound designer. They're in between, and they can really be of such service to the play and the world of the play. But I think perhaps the director has I'm speaking from an Australian perspective, perhaps the director has more agency, or more, there's hierarchy, and that the director is leading that room, and it's sort of their call. But I guess maybe the onus on the actor in their own time to do lessons and to do sessions and seek that work. It's not working, but I wish the director and the voice coach had a better relationship, generally speaking.
Certainly. It feels much more or not as popular in Australia, and certainly India, to have the voice person in the room as part of the creative process, rather than just a technician, but somebody who's actually helping the production and the actors, and even the director sometimes, discover more through the vocal work. I love watching the video clips from like the National Theatre, where the voice coach is working on, the Hamlet speech or whatever, and discovering more and more and more to then take into the rehearsal room to play with. I think it's wonderful.
Asif, your thoughts on this?
No, it's pretty much the same. It starts with the actor. Of course, the actor has to do all his own preparation and homework. And if the director finds through the rehearsal process that the actor is not doing that, then he has to somehow draw it out of him. In India, we don't have the luxury of voice teachers in rehearsal.
How many people would be regarded as voice teachers, do you think, across India? Are there many?
Across India, I don't know. I can only speak with regard to Mumbai.
Yeah.
And really, this is a new thing. You know, the
Mhm.
thing is, I'll share a little experience here. Sorry.
Mm.
Yeah, please do.
Uh, some years ago, a British director called Tim Supple came to India to do a
Ah.
production of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Mm.
You know, and we said, oh, everyone was very excited because the play would be traveling to England, to London, and we were aiming to perform at the Globe.
Yeah.
We want to perform at the Globe. So we all rushed, and so far, up until then, I had only been exposed to South Bombay theatre. I don't know, Glenn, whether you know of this great big divide,
Yes.
Divide. Yes.
South Bombay and North Bombay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
South
Absolutely.
Bombay theatre meant everyone talks. They talk like that,
Yes. Yes.
especially if you're doing Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So, so there were all the South Bombay people who came with their posh accents,
Yeah.
and then there were all the actors from this part of Bombay who were in vernacular theatre or regional theatre,
Yeah.
who came to that audition and they shat on South Bombay.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just shat on South Bombay, and those were the guys who were picked to play the parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when, and for me, that was again affectation versus honesty. Your own voice,
Yeah.
even though it's Shakespeare. Who said there is only one way to speak Shakespeare? Who said it?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
and I had never heard Shakespeare spoken like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so it's I feel it has to work with actor and director. And we don't
Director.
so now I mean there's Hetal Varia, of course, who teaches
Mm.
voice, and of course now I also get called to train actors and
Mm.
but up until then there was one person, the South Bombay person
Yeah.
who coaches people who sent to beauty pageants around the world who
Right.
talk like that.
Yeah, yeah, God. I even yesterday I stepped in with Rayana's class with the babies. These kids are like 12, 13, 10, 11, 12,
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
And we read the Act 2 scene 1, I think it is, the first mechanical scene from Midsummer Night's Dream. And these kids hadn't really read Shakespeare at all. They certainly hadn't spoken Shakespeare. And listening to some of these kids' natural to the words was just, oh my God. And it just reminded me, Shakespeare was writing for the people. He wasn't writing for the upper class la-di-das. He was writing for the people. And
Yeah.
hearing these children who were, especially the ones who were confident to read aloud, and their nuances and their natural to language was just, I mean, God, it was so exciting. It's so exciting. It was very, very wonderful.
Yeah.
And
And
it's a bit,
again, this thing of shouting. There's some actors who come and they just shout,
Yeah.
and sometimes and there is a certain. I've noticed that there is one particular school, established drama school, that these actors come out of, where they've learned to have just this big shouting voice. In fact,
Yeah.
once one of them who was from this particular school, we were all in a play together, and he was asked to do voice exercises, and he was making people yell to the point of breakdown. And I said, I can't be part of this. I can't. I wanted to cry, and we
Yeah.
had a big fight about it,
God.
and yelling to the point of breaking them down. I don't know whether that's is that a thing, Patrick? Is that a
Not so much in voice class. I haven't experienced that in voice class in Australia particularly, but in some acting classes I have.
Yeah.
Mainly, I'm not, sort of attacking American teaching, but some American teachers I've seen that happen. Yeah. But yeah,
I
But
think,
in-
sorry,
in-
yeah.
sorry, in a production, if let's say from a cast of 10, 4 have gone to some drama school or have had some training, others have had no training, and you just foist this on them, then if they've not had any training in breath and how to support the voice and they're just yelling, you're creating more damage than anything
well,
else.
it's dangerous, isn't it?
It is
It's
dangerous.
the vocal cords can get affected, scratched, whatever, and it's really just a danger to be doing that.
It is,
It's
it
I
is.
think
real
also
danger.
there is that like we were talking about, the fashion of mumbling, etc. There seems to be this fashion, which I think has been around for quite a while, of faux method, where it's about must break down the actor. for them to try to find a true emotion. And I mean, I've experienced being on the receiving end when I was studying at Whopper of a guest director doing that. And it was horrible. And, you know, we all ended up basically in therapy. And finding, you know, suddenly we were holding tensions where we've never held tensions before. And it has the opposite effect of closing down rather than release. You know, it's extraordinary. I can't imagine in voice that would help at all. It kind of leads to another question I had that I thought of. Do you think, as far as an actor practicing and maintaining their voice, if they haven't had access in the past of learning how to do it properly, do you think it's more dangerous that they maintain a practice which is not correct than actually not doing it at all?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I think if you create a process for an actor who's had no training, which if you've had the training, then you should know how to create or to design a routine where they don't end up damaging their voices. Design a vocal regimen where they're not damaging. Because for me, everything, the foundation is breath. The foundation is breath. So you have to start with some breathing technique and help them understand how the breath supports the voice, and then take it into modulation and into projection, intonation, and all of that.
Yeah. But what if the young actor is only and I do find it the danger of, you know, when we read exercises and they haven't actually physically had the experience of learning the exercise on the floor with someone, but they read an exercise and go, oh, okay, I can do that, and they're doing it completely wrong. Do you think it's more damaging for them? Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Patrick, what are your thoughts on that?
Reading the exercise is one of the biggest traps, Glenn. We talk about it a lot. Yeah, Patrick, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably more damaging. I'm not being overly sort of protective in the sense that read the book, give it a try. But it is really advisable to have someone there who's got an eye and an ear on it that can help you with that process. But because it's so easy, you could be pitching it too low, you could be doing or whatever it is, you could be doing some real damage. But I'd be more inclined to try some of the physical work in the books than anything to do with sound. That's when you're starting to go into, in my opinion, new territory, which is such a sensitive. It's so sensitive, and as I said, like the size of your fingernail. Before we were talking about it, it's those vocal folds are so small. They're durable, resilient, strong, but they also can get damaged real quick. So I'd be always wanting the actor to go through it with someone. And but it's also interesting that I think voice work's always going to the instinctive and the organic. So what we do, if you haven't been crowded by habits, bad habits or unwanted habits, what you do is instinctively should be healthy in theory. If you're because everyone's born with the vast majority of us are born with a healthy, strong voice. Baby crying, that old cliche, baby cries for hours. So if we're not impeded by habit and we're doing what's instinctive and organic, the voice should take care of itself to an extent. That's an untrained voice, of course. That's just a person wanting to use their voice. But I think having a voice person there is advisable.
Absolutely.
I suppose also it's where work like Feldenkrais, even yoga, Alexander technique. I mean, that coming back to that neutral and opening all this so the voice can be free, rather than just going, okay, well, I'll just go for the voice and it's all just here. But it's actually such a full body experience, the voice. It's quite incredible. I love watching really young actors' eyes sort of get wider and wider when you start talking about what is the pelvic floor, what does the intercostal muscles mean, and that your breath just doesn't go down, it goes down, out, sideways, backwards, and I don't think it's interesting because we don't discuss it as part of our culture, I suppose, which kind of surprises me the more I think about it, in that sense of it's good for corporates, it's good for any industry, it's good for mothers, fathers, any environment. If you've got control of this beautiful thing called the voice, you're going to affect the world around you so much more. And it's interesting that humanity is kind of losing its voice in a way.
And in
Thanks to
reality,
this,
that's
thanks to
breath.
this,
Yes.
what is our communication reduced to? TY, GM.
Yeah.
What is this? What is this communication?
Exactly. I had a really interesting discussion with a young guy yesterday who's not an actor, and he said, you know, I was having an argument with my friend on WhatsApp, and I said, look, don't argue on WhatsApp.
Yes.
And it's purely about voice, because we interpret what we read. If we can't hear it, we don't hear the humor, we don't hear the anger, we don't hear the shyness, we don't hear the fear.
We don't hear the intention.
Exactly. And, it relates directly to the craft, you know, of acting. And we hear all this as well as watching it.
That's a very scary thing I find with the new generation. I have friends who prefer to chat on WhatsApp than actually call and speak to me. I say, what? Really?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely extraordinary.
And it's interesting. You know, I bring a lot of these discussions to our youth workshops as well, where they are just ingrained into this habit of texting. So their language is text. That's how they talk. And Glenn, even in our corporate trainings, we bring in a lot of what is the message that you want to convey and what actually gets conveyed. You know, and if you don't understand that, you know, inherently with the way you breathe, walk, stand, talk, you won't be able to achieve that accuracy of that message that you want your audience to hear. It's a very interesting point you mentioned about, you know, texting and not sort of thinking what, you know, what is going on in the sense, breathing the wrong way has become a norm. As you said, Glenn, it's we're almost losing it as a culture. You know, where right from the age of, because I observe kids as young as 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, the right way of breathing, the diaphragmatic breathing or understanding is just not there. So this is absolutely fine to be using the shoulder to deep breathe. And I find it so important to correct that at a very young age, because it stays with you, doesn't it? It stays
But you know
with
what?
you throughout.
One of a quote I use in my class all the time is, the quality of your breath is the quality of your life.
Very
You want
true.
to know how valuable your breath is to you, and I go and strangle them. Now you know how important it is, and you don't use it, you just take it for granted. But I blame parents for this. I'm sorry, because we are born beautiful. We breathe naturally. Everything is. Then all the adulteration happens.
Yes.
Sit straight. Chup बैठो. Don't talk so much. Don't ask. बड़ों के सामने बात नहीं करते. Sorry, Patrick.
That means you don't argue with elders. You don't argue with elders.
So all that, and then we go to school. Sit straight. Keep quiet. Fingers on the lips. So it's, and then we begin to accept as normal. This is how we are tense with it. I have to behave myself. There's no freedom. There's no freedom. And so and then you go to a gym to work out.
It's all about tight.
It's all the tightness.
So then they begin to believe that this is, even in some yoga classes I've seen.
Yes.
Deep breathing. No.
Fill it up. Yeah.
His shoulders going up and down, being breath.
As if
there's
poor
no
parents,
lungs in your shoulder.
Poor parents, they've known it that way. They've not known it any other way.
Sometimes it becomes dangerous when I talk to female students. I say, ladies, these are not your lungs.
Yeah.
I have to be very careful. These are not your lungs. I don't want to see this moving up and down.
It's amazing, and it's quite global.
Patrick.
And it's interesting. It's just interesting with the back on the phone thing, is that when your head, neck, shoulder relationship, the tension, this thing developing at the moment called nerd neck, they call it, which is everyone. And I have to be very diligent on it. You know, your neck beginning to slump.
Huh.
But also for energy, your energy, if you're consumed by your phone, your energy is, going up and forward and connecting with another person. For a generational thing, is I'm concerned about, is that we're learning not to do that. We're sort of becoming all about the phone and not about the other person and connecting.
Yeah.
So the voice will follow the physical life, and the physical life is down and inwards.
Absolutely.
Patrick, that reminds me of this amazing meme I saw that we're going backwards. We kind of straightened our spine, evolutionally speaking.
Yeah.
And now we're bending it again, and we'll go back to being the Neanderthals that we once were.
It is. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
interesting
thought that
though, isn't it? I mean, it's such a an incredible consideration for when you're working with young actors and training actors. I mean, and they must recognize all these societal things that are happening to be able to counteract it, because they're telling stories of other people, of other generations, other times, and they need to find neutral. They need to have a sense of neutral. Yeah, it's very, very fascinating.
We've heard such amazing things about the quality, things like quality of breath is quality of life, nerd neck, as you said, Patrick.
Fantastic.
It's quite cool. So is there that's a very interesting question that I wanted to ask, is what are the encouraging words, something like these, that you spring on actors for them to take voice seriously? So quality of life and strangling are right up there. Asif, anything else? Patrick?
Oh, I'm just trying to think what I use so many quotes from other great teachers I've had, and there's so many wonderful things out there. I think enjoyment. I think like finding, I'm not saying fun, but find the pleasure in voice.
Yeah.
The pleasure of using your voice. I think I sort of encourage the actors I work with to not think of it as technical chore. It has technical factors to it. It's a technical work, but a lot of it's embodied, it's pleasurable, it needs to find ease, enjoyment. So I really encourage them to find how can I turn them on to the work? What turns them on about voice work? And I think it's about ease and pleasure, the pleasure to play, enjoyment, enjoying voice, enjoying making sound, enjoying communicating, using your voice to affect the other. And I'm really big on that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
For me,
Asif?
because I am in my training that I have not only actors but people from all walks of life. I have incorporated in my little workbook a whole list of speech-related proverbs. But the one that I love the most is speech is power. Speech is power. Speech is to persuade, to convert, to compel.
Yeah.
And you can empower people or you can ruin them just with the sheer power of your words and how you say them. So I believe of course I talk a lot about listening. I said everyone goes to learn how to speak well. Do we ever learn how to listen? And communication is a two-way process. And if we learn to speak well and listen, relationships will improve and the world will be a better place. We are in this mess today
Because of that.
because of this.
Yeah.
I'm speaking badly. You're not bothering to listen. I'm not caring whether you're listening or not, understanding or not. What is the quality of our communication?
Yeah.
So my speech is power. You can empower somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't stand Modi, but he is a fucking charismatic speaker.
Well, lovely orator. Yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Incredible.
That is
I remember during my training, so back in the 80s, and one of the most powerful things said to me was, Glenn, people that shout are out of control.
There you go.
People that are not shouting and speaking at a normal pitch and level, they're in control. And I found it so incredibly provocative when approaching character. And this idea of, let's take the cliche of anger. But if I'm angry but in control, then I'm not going to be shouting. I'm going to be quite calm, and I love that idea that volume and shouting can really only mean you're out of control. And that's the subliminal message that the audience is getting.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is far more effective and powerful than yelling.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's very intimidating when you have someone who's very angry with you, but they're speaking quite softly and saying,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
because this guy, I mean, that's
Of
how I
course.
learned it, because he actually was angry at me for something, and he explained how his technique of scaring the shit out of me was just to stay very, very, very calm and quiet. And I was crumbled. I was absolutely crushed by his silence and quietness.
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible.
That's a very important point we're discussing about the impact voice has on audience, and that's what my next question is. We all know adages around hiding the process of the work from the audience, right? So what are some of the subliminal effects you think that an audience takes away from a voice in performance, both stage and screen? So Patrick.
Some of the subliminal takeaways.
Effects, yeah, the audience
Effects.
feels.
Well, I think back when we were talking about this earlier about the breath, the mirroring process of when the actor holds the breath, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that the audience will collectively hold their breath, or so we're sort of plugging into that actor when they're speaking. And you can feel when the actor's not breathing, or when they're nervous, or when they're out of control, or when they're relaxed. And I think the audience is so much smarter than we give them credit for, because on a sort of a primal level, they're plugging into the actor, and they're reading, and they're reading body language, and they're looking at the actor, and they're hearing the actor. With that, in regards to almost the shouting too, is that it's I think it can be a very generous impulse to be loud and to want to smother the audience in sound, but I think it's a perspective thing on the size of the venue, but also bringing the audience in. So instead of throwing out the voice and having to smother everyone and be loud and this is my big voice, this is something I had to learn, is that I can bring people into my voice, and it doesn't have to be loud. It can be an energy thing. It can be the use of consonants. It can be the rhythm, the pace. There's so many wonderful things, but to bring someone into your performance and then know when to push them out again.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautifully put.
Yeah.
Asif, what's your experience?
For me, it's whether everything is in sync. Is the body in sync with the character? Is the voice in sync with the body? Is it all in sync? I will give you when I was studying drama school, I remember once during break I watched Al Jarreau perform live in London, and I was in the third row. Of course, that man is master. The way he was master of his voice. The voice was like a slave. It was like. And I felt for the first time, here was a singer singing with his whole body.
Yeah, right.
Every inch of his body was singing. So for me, when I see that in a performance with an actor, the whole body is speaking. I think that's what the audience gets. I mean, that's what I, as an audience, get. That's what I say, whoa, that's what hits me. The actor speaking with his whole body.
Yeah.
And it's tied up nicely with the character. It's all one.
Lovely. Yeah.
It's all one.
I had a very similar reaction to that. I just watched the first season of Ratchet, and the Australian actress Judy Davis. Thank you very much. Who's playing one of the leads in it, and it's quite a theatrical performance. And it's really pushing it to the edge. I mean, the whole production is quite heightened, but this vocal connection to her body it's so beautiful to watch, and it's a joy. And it actually, it's clever in the sense that because it's not the nicest of characters, but it makes you love this character, and it's so sumptuous because this whole body, voice, breath connection is beautiful. A beautiful performance.
Glenn, you've always emphasized that in all the workshops and the rehearsals that we've had about the importance of being centered in your neutral state, and that's what helps the voice.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, as opposed to, as we spoke about, storing those tensions. I had a very interesting thought when Patrick and Asif, you were talking about, you know, drowning the audience in your voice, you know, rather than
Mm,
bringing them
mm.
in, and how being in unison, uh, at times it's got to do with the maturity of the audience as well, isn't it? I'll tell you why I'm asking this. Because growing up in India, you were told that, oh, loud's good, the audience has clapped, and the actor thought, oh, this is wonderful. And somehow it kind of perpetuates itself, where there's this breed of directors and actors who thought that that applause meant I am great. And really, this appreciation for the subtle, the appreciation for the work that's done internally, and
Mm,
that
mm.
shows up, that hasn't really reached, or is just about starting to reach the audiences now. And I'm talking about India centric audiences.
Mm.
And I'd love to hear from both of you if it was the same in Australia in the yesteryears as well, or not. Asif, what are your thoughts on this?
Rayana, the best example of that again is Amitabh Bachchan.
I agree.
He's created this trap for himself because he knew it worked with the first film. His style of delivering a dialogue, it worked with the first film. It made him who he is. So
Mm.
whatever character he's playing,
Is the
you
same.
hear the same thing because it works.
Yeah,
He's trapped in that and he can't get
absolutely.
out of it. He's too
Mm,
insecure to
mm.
get out of it. And it's sad because I find him, suddenly you see shades of brilliance somewhere and you say, my God, this man is capable of this, but he's caught in this trap.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I know I'm speaking of one of the biggest stars, icons in India, Patrick. But
Mm.
he's imprisoned himself in this trap,
That trap.
and directors expect it, and audiences expect
Yeah.
it,
I
and
was
they
going
just
to
play to
ask,
that.
Asif, I was going to ask, do you think also it's from a producer's perspective and director's perspective, they're saying, no, 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 do what you did in the last film because
It
that,
works.
and it's about box office rather than
It is.
developing character.
True.
Yeah.
It
True.
is. It's sad.
I
It's
think
very
that
sad.
happens globally. I really think. I mean, you look at the
Mm.
Hollywood system as well. You know, where these actors, you know, Vin Diesels and you know these pigeonholed actors. The Rock is one actor I'm loving watching
Yeah.
the development of his. He's just trying new things. It's true, and he's got such beautiful humor
Mm.
about his career and life, and I think he's doing himself some really big favors for setting himself up for when he's too old to play the action hero, you know, where he's actually developing a really much broader persona, which is obviously
Mm.
based on this 7-foot muscular bald man. I mean, he knows who he is, but when you see the films of the last, you know, up to 10 years where he's really played with genre, he's playing with character and vocally as well. It's quite
I heard
interesting.
him singing recently.
Yeah, yeah. He's in Number One, and he does that
Wow.
amazing rap.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh my God, I love that film. I cried so much. Yeah, a little bit.
It's, you know, and probably the point about, you know, them being lauded, and the directors and the producers wanting them to, what we don't realize is the far reaching impact that cinema or art has on culture. Like,
Mm,
there's a whole generation of youth, of students, of now corporate leaders who believe loud is better, who believe that
Mm.
emphasis only comes when you're loud, and that's when the audience applauses. And I
mm,
mean, you can almost see a direct correlation of where that is coming from,
yeah.
because they become role models. Patrick, you were you know, wanted to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's fascinating that it is a bit, it's different in Australia, but it's just interesting that loud, like the quality is it takes agency over the content. Like, what are you saying? Why are you saying it? It's just interesting that this loudness is applauded, and that it's theatrical and it's big, and that's all good stuff in a way. You know, some stuff you need that occasionally, but I'm always for what are you saying? Why are you saying it?
Yeah.
What's the logic of this thought? What is this thought?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's interesting on the thing about habit and shtick, you know, and getting employed for this thing. I really admire actors who know their type and know what they can do, but then go, I know I do this. I'm Vin Diesel, but I'm actually going to go do this. And that's why I really admire someone like Daniel Radcliffe, who didn't go to drama school, was known as Harry Potter, and then he went and got voice classes with Barbara Houseman, who's a very well-known and prominent, respected voice teacher in the UK. And every show he does, he gets Barbara Houseman in to work with him on the voice, work on the text, because he wants to be more than just more than just Harry Potter.
He wants to be an actor. Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I first saw the clip from him in How to Succeed in Business on Broadway, where there's, Harry Potter singing, dancing, and I just thought, my God, this young guy is working his ass off. It's fantastic. I don't mean, on stage, like seeing the work, but I mean to prepare. He's obviously going back to class and taking the craft seriously and not relying on being Harry Potter, which is awesome. Awesome. I have a lot of respect for him. He's incredible.
So I'm mindful of the time, and I want to switch gears a bit. We've talked about affectations, and we've talked about what is natural and what doesn't come naturally to actors when it comes to voice. But there is a need to train in accents, right? If the role comes up. So switching gears, talking about what is the trick to achieving the accent, the accurate accent, and would love to hear both your thoughts. Asif, what do you think?
For me, it's about placement of vowels and consonants in the articulators, rather than trying to pick it up phonetically or just orally. Understanding the placement, which I do with a lot in my sessions when it comes to English and Hindi, because in India there are two main languages of communication. Understanding whether the placement for pa is the same in English and Hindi. It's just, for me, that is the trick.
Lovely.
That is shapes of vowels and consonants.
That's wonderful.
I experienced that one in the backseat of a cab once, Asif, where this actor actually explained "the" to me, whereas there's "the," which is at the tip of the tongue, at the front of the back of the teeth. Then there's "da," which is like in the middle of the hard palate. Then there's "da," which is the middle of the tongue at the back of the hard palate. And so you've got these three sounds, and it actually clicked. I went, oh my God, that makes so much sense, and it made me so much more understandable. In my very, very thoda Hindi.
So interesting. See, the sound that most Indians can't get is the TH sound, the interdental TH. Ta. So just now when you said, because we have TH as an alveolar sound, ta. So we say thoda, but just now you said thoda.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
I'm still the white man. Still the foreigner, Ferengi. Yeah.
Just on the outside, Glenn. Just on the outside.
Glenn, you'll be surprised to know I'm whiter than you when it came to that. I grew up with a very white background. My grandmother was Anglo-Indian and racist Anglo-Indian.
Oh God!
Isn't that? For her, Indians were damn niggers.
Oh my God!
I swear to you, that's what I grew up with.
Wow.
Indians are damn niggers.
Oh my God! That's.
And I had to make that big, great shift in my head. I see.
That's big psychology as well. Having to make those histrionic sort of shifts. Patrick, what's your take on accents?
I've started to think of accents as a realization that it's more than just learning an accent. It's actually, I guess, because of my acting background, I really look at the Stanislavski's principles. I think about given circumstances, text analysis, and really go, you're not just learning a Cockney dialect, but why does this character in Entertaining Mr. Sloan have, yes, he is Cockney, but, for instance, but why, what are the inconsistencies? What are the consistencies in the inconsistencies?
Right.
Why do they say this? No two voices are the same. No two accents or dialects are the same. We all have inconsistencies. So I like to think of accent as working one-on-one with the person. I think you can, of course, teach a general something to a bunch of actors. This is a general, like generally speaking, this vowel will move to this vowel. And that's great. But I'm interested with working with actors and doing more detailed piecemeal work.
Yep.
And really looking at given circumstances and looking at the text and going, okay, well, you grew up here in this time, so you might have this sound, but you also spent time over here, or you may want to speak like that because of psychological in this.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not trying to be too wanky about it, but I think it's just I with accent work, I'm really, the devil's in the detail for me.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And but here's a question for both of you. Why is the Scottish accent so so impenetrable for so many people?
Oh, I can't answer that question. I don't
It
know what-
seems to be the one accent that everyone goes, oh
Very
my
difficult.
God, the Scottish accent.
I once had a
Yeah.
Scottish boss, and trust me, I tried it a lot. I couldn't. I
Yeah,
heard him
yeah.
day in, day out, but I couldn't.
Any thoughts, Patrick?
No, it's just interesting. I don't know, it's something about the Gaelic history and about similarities with some parts of Ireland too.
Yeah.
And then some people conflate that with American. So it's like this weird, your brain constantly is almost lighting up in different ways and going, is it American? Is it Irish? No, it's Scottish. But I don't know. And something about, I think the manner of articulation was Scottish, and not overdoing it, because it's so easy to parody a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
And just to roll your R's, but it's just, there's so much going on there that needs a lot of work.
Absolutely. Well, it's similar. It's like in Ireland, you know, where there's the Northern Ireland accent and the Southern Ireland accent, and it's such a small landmass.
Yeah.
And somebody actually explained it really nicely to me once and said, look, Southern Ireland is much more hills and dales. And so everybody's talking a little bit more musical because you're going up and down hills, whereas Northern Ireland's a lot more flatter. And so you've got a
Very cool.
And
That is.
I mean, so I learned this years ago, and as an actor, I always look at the geography, the landscape, and you know whether that affects accent or not.
Very,
You know,
very
I think
cool.
it's
Asif, you had something to say about accents, and was it a point were you making? No.
I was,
Must have.
yeah, something.
It was a lot.
No. When he was talking about, Patrick mentioned something about Cockney accent.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I've seen Julie Andrews, very cheesy example. Julie Andrews tried to play Eliza Doolittle, and it just does not work. It's Julie Andrews trying to speak Cockney because she's so refined. Her diction is so refined and posh, and I don't know, but it's like she can never play Eliza Doolittle for me.
Yeah. I remember you
doesn't
mentioning,
sound
you know,
real.
it's very interesting you mentioned that. I remember you mentioning, Glenn, in all your workshops that it's 6 months of work perfecting that accent, isn't it? And therefore that sort of quick switch over is nothing more than just a parody, if not carefully thought.
Well, as Patrick and Asif were both saying, you know, it's that danger, I think, of the parody rather than the character. I heard a fantastic story. It's funny you mentioned Eliza Doolittle, but I think it was an interview with I can't remember who, and they were talking about that whole idea of the scene where Eliza's being dragged off to have a bath, and she's ow, you know, and they're saying the ow is not just her making a sound of get away from me, it's blood boiling and curdling fear, because for that class of people to be dragged off to be washed usually meant something very, very painful, where it was about scrubbing down for the lice and scrubbing down for disease and dirt. So the fear is what is dictating the sound, rather than just going, ow, get off me. It's blood curdling fear. And I loved hearing that. And it's relating directly to what both of you have spoken about, where, you know, voice also is dictated by character and situation and objective and your intention.
For me, it's also a lot to do with identity. Some years ago, I was called to an audition where I had to play a stereotypical North Indian character, you know. And I said, "Hey, namaste, bhabhi. Arey, wari, aaj kya banaye hai rasoi mein? Kya aloo matar paneer?" I left that audition. I had to excuse myself because I told the casting director, I said, you know, I don't identify with this character at all. I don't identify with the character. and I'm not a good enough actor to be able to do it convincingly. But for me, it was identity. I don't like characters like that. So I could not let go of my own prejudices and biases in my head to completely allow myself to get into that character and to make because there's a certain guttural kind of
Yeah.
manner
I know
that's
that
associated.
very well.
Sorry, sorry, Ryan. I don't mean to
Oh, but that's
demean.
good. I know it. No, no, no. I know
Arey,
that
namaste,
very well.
bhabhi. Arey, aaj kya bana? And I think it's also a lot to do with my own orientation. Sorry, but I couldn't
Yeah.
do it. This testosterone-filled
Yeah,
male, not
yeah.
in.
Macho. Yeah.
So I think it's also identity. Can you completely let go of your own identity and get into the identity of the character, and then let the accent come out of there?
Yeah. Look, and bless you too. I mean, and as we head towards wrapping it up, I mean, something that's screamed at me from both of you the whole session is the integrity
Integrity.
of the
Yeah,
work.
absolutely.
You know, and for an actor to do what you did, Asif, I think is so steeped with
honest.
integrity and respect to the craft. And both of you have been talking from a very, very wonderful space about this thing called the voice.
Absolutely. And so, just as closing thoughts, if we could have from the both of you, the importance of having a voice coach in the room,
Yeah.
whether shooting or rehearsing. Just few closing thoughts on that, Patrick.
I think it's use us. If you have a voice coach in the room, really use the voice coach. You know, they're there to help you. They're in service of you. They're there to enable you, to empower you. I'm not a fan of saying it's a safe space, but it is a safe space.
Yeah.
I think it can be a bit of a cliche, but really it is. It's a voice coach is there to work with you, to collaborate. And the voice is such a sensitive thing, and it's really quite vulnerable. And it asks a lot of you because it's so, as Asif was saying, it's so linked to identity. And because we are what we say and how we say it, as Rodenberg says. And I really believe that. So use a voice coach because they want you to be the best actor you can be.
Yeah.
They want to ensure your performance is going to be hot, like shit hot.
Yeah.
And I think just use the voice coach in the room if you have one. If you have the great luxury of having a voice coach.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Asif?
Pretty much the same. I mean, if you don't have the right voice to the character, you don't have anything. So if you have the luxury of a voice coach, use him and help find that character voice, and find it the right way. Find it the right way. If he is generous enough to share breathing, and I keep coming back to that because I know in my life how my life has changed from discovering breathing technique. How much it has helped me. So if the voice coach is generous enough to share breathing technique and then help you find it from there, plant the seed and help the plant to grow.
Then very, very true.
Understand the value of it.
And it's so nice to hear, if I had to condense all of this, into one line, it is part of it. Yeah. It's not something separate. It is part of it, and it's intrinsic. And it is character, it is text, it is the story, it's acting, that's wonderful. Look, from my perspective, thank you so much, guys, for being our first Hands Across the Sea, which is really, really lovely. It's so nice to bring perspectives together from different locations and to more so to hear the similarities that we're all actually in the same job. We're all doing the same thing, which is to make beautiful performance. And so from my perspective, thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. Really means a lot. And Glenn, if I'm allowed to add one more word, it's a part of it and it's the heart of it, isn't it? It's all of it. So thank you so much on that note. Really, really appreciate your time. And we look forward to sharing the final cut with the both of you before it goes. But really, once again, on that note, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Lovely to be with you all. It's really lovely to be with you all.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Asif.
Stay safe.